Nick Durst here for In the Zone, and joining me here today is Jessica Slate. Hook 'em, Jessica.
I know, hook 'em. We're having a pretty good basketball season so far, so it's a good time to be a Longhorn.
So you went to the University of Texas. How much of a legend is Vince Young?
Oh, he's still very much a presence on campus. And definitely, a very big household name in Texas. So the legend is still there.
So currently you are digital marketing specialist for the Connecticut Sun. So you work in the WNBA. Growing up, who was your favorite WNBA player?
I mean, I'd probably biased because I like Tina Thompson after working with her, as well as Fran Harris. They both spent some time going through Texas, and so I've really enjoyed getting to know them and keeping up with their careers a little bit. But Lisa Leslie, of course, coming from California, was a really big legend growing up. So luckily, the WNBA's had quite a bit of talent to watch over the years.
Certainly Lisa Leslie, the face of the league for a long time, maybe still is, even though she's been retired for a while, believe it or not. My favorite, Becky Hammon,
Oh
New
yeah,
York. Love the Liberties. So
absolutely. And she's obviously still doing such great things with basketball that she's very impressive to me.
absolutely. So, we mentioned it right at the top. You went to the University of Texas. When did you decide your career or in schooling that you wanted to pursue a career path in sports? And we know you studied sports broadcasting there as well. So when did you decide you wanted to pursue that career path?
I think I knew in high school, I'd always competed in sports. And I think originally the idea of being an orthopedic surgeon was fun and repairing ACLs and Achilles and stuff, but I don't think I had the patience for medical school. So figured I would report on the torn ACLs and the comeback stories. And that was a huge reason why I went to Texas, was because I was such a big fan of their sports growing up and just the legend of the athletic program there. And so I went into sports journalism as soon as I got there, and those are really the only electives and extra courses I was taking were sports based. So kind of been with it since the very beginning.
Awesome. So tell us how you got your first internship and then how from there you were able to snowball that into some other great intern opportunities.
Yeah, I think I had a little bit of experience from high school just filming the basketball team. I travel with the men's team and do all the film and cut it and stuff for them to watch. So when I went to college, I had a little bit of experience and did some networking, but I was coming home after my freshman year and my mom was like, you can't just, sit around or go to the beach. You need to have something productive to do. And the alternative was online classes. So I was like, I need to find an internship. And I reached out to the Summer League baseball team where I grew up for collegiate summer league and just said, hey, this is what I'm studying. I'll help in any way possible. Doesn't have to be a certain position. And they just happened to have an opening for a broadcaster. So I did solo play-by-play and color commentary for a 50-game summer season for free. Spent, countless hours at the ballpark. But because of that, and the risk that they took on me being the first female broadcaster for them and having no broadcast experience, it made it a lot easier going into my future internships with Longhorn Network and Fox Sports, because they'd kind of seen my track record of being willing to take on a bit of a challenge. And I think that helped me in the long run.
How challenging was it to do a game by yourself? I do some games here in New York for NCAA Division Two, and when I have to do a game by myself, I always freak out because I can't talk that long to nobody. It's really one of the toughest things in the business, I think.
Yeah, I would say there was a huge development from my first game to my 50th game. And it was so noticeable. But I think once you get past the kind of the awkwardness of talking to yourself without having a color commentator, you start to create some dialogues. Baseball, it's not super weird to bring up the weather. So you can start looking for some extra stuff like that, describe the scene of the ballpark and start looking for really anything else, because baseball does have so much downtime in between plays that you have to get real creative and look for other things to talk about. And then I really enjoyed doing the stat research. So trying to have as many like random facts and, stat patterns that I'd seen so that I have something else to talk about.
Awesome. So you did the internships with Fox Sports, which is huge, Longhorn Network, which is also huge. Tell us how you went about, graduating and then you started your process for applying to jobs.
Yeah. So with the internships in college, I think it was really helpful that they were both really hands-on. So I was walking away with actual technical experience, and I had editing reels, and ESPN was really good about, I mean, if we came in, we had assignments, and if we didn't do them as interns, there would be gaps in the show. So there really was a responsibility there. So when I went to graduate, I had quite a bit of, non book related experience, and some technical skills. Again, I worked for a news station in my hometown right when I graduated as a videographer. And so wasn't really sports related. We mostly did, I did the generic news stories, filling in between reporters. But I got a lot of technical skills, running cameras, editing. You're doing all the interviews to get the sound bites. You're just not on camera. So same skill sets, just a little bit less polished. Um, and I think just that same mindset that I went into with my baseball internship, that just because I don't, know everything about a specific role when I'm going into it, I think the willingness to learn and having a track record of being able to pick things up pretty quickly is super helpful in this industry.
So you, like many others in the industry, you keep jumping to larger positions. So walk us through your time here, leading up to your move to Phoenix, Arizona, where you started working with iHeartRadio.
Yeah. So after a year working in news, I didn't want to get too far away from sports. And so I ended up just kind of winging it. I went to Phoenix. I knew it was a big market. They had really quality sports all the way down to the high school, AAU club level, up to professional with, the big four sports, as well as minor league. There's, a huge golf scene there. So Phoenix just seemed like a good place to be. And the cost of living was relatively cheap, so I could kind of risk burning through some savings. Um, so I got there and I just started applying for a bunch of jobs, reaching out to people. A lot of the stuff was either unpaid or just significantly underpaid, piecing a lot of stuff together. I ended up working for iHeartRadio doing traffic. So I'd wake up at like 4 a.m. and fill in on your morning commute, talking about where different wrecks were and stuff like that. Again, totally unrelated, but it gave me more confidence in broadcasting and hearing myself talk, as well as just learning more systems that different broadcast networks were using. And then I reached out to a local college. I worked at NAIA doing more broadcasting, ended up running the social media for their entire athletic department, which was pretty cool because since it was such a small school, there wasn't a lot of foundation already for their social media. So gave me the opportunity to start to learn how to develop campaigns and themes, and of course manage multiple properties of social media. And then from there, just kept grabbing some more stuff. I worked with AZ Sports on Fox Sports, covering high school sports. I did some writing for Fansided, covered the Lakers. Basically, if I could get any experience, even if it was for one single project, I tried to do that. And then eventually started working for the Phoenix Sun as their in-arena host, which was totally different kind of from everything else. It was still the public speaking background and of course sports related, but more on the entertainment side. And I think that really gave me a good perspective on how important it is to take fans into consideration and how important their experience is, because above all, that's kind of the point of, the sports, is to showcase to fans. So that was a really cool opportunity for me, that I think also just gave me so many networking opportunities and the opportunity to get in front of people and introduce myself.
So how did the opportunity come about to be the in-arena host? Sounds like an awesome job. And also, what was the audition process like? Did they make you stand at center court to an empty arena? And how did that process go?
Yeah, so they just posted an application like any other role. But after I applied, I went through on LinkedIn and on social media to find people in those relevant entertainment departments, tried to reach out, use some of the connections I'd made to try and strike a conversation with the hiring director, and found out that their dance auditions for the Suns dancers are public for the finals. And I knew that that's the same department. So I went and made sure I kind of had the faces memorized, and then went up and, shook some hands, introduced myself. Um, I think trying to create those opportunities was really important because I knew I was coming in without some of that hosting and entertainment experience that is typically expected or required of somebody at the NBA entertainment level. But just showing how eager I was and personable and malleable. So then for the audition, I believe I just had to answer some questions, do a traditional interview. And then I had to go into the arena once I got to a certain point. They'd given me some scripts in advance I had to memorize, but basically run through some of the promotions they typically do to an empty arena, which of course is super awkward, especially because you can hear yourself. And in a full arena, you don't really have to hear your own voice, especially if you're at center court, the speakers all face away. But I did that to the empty court, and then the final three, they had me come in and host just one timeout, I think, or maybe one quarter of a Mercury game for the WNBA, and then they took those three auditions and compared them and ended up giving me the chance. So it was a really cool opportunity and a totally different interview process than any other type of job I'd had.
Absolutely. Now, how nervous were you the first game with like 16,000 fans in the stadium?
I was nervous, but I actually have found I was more nervous. The very first event that they had me do was a like marketing event where we were announcing the big partnership with PayPal. So I had to get on like a small stage. It was just a bunch of PayPal employees, the governor of Arizona, and I think like Devin Booker. That was like the three of us. And so my that to me was way more nerve-wracking than actually getting into the arena, because the smaller the crowd, the more you can see faces and reactions and kind of hear sounds that might be distracting. Whereas in the arena or at half court, there's just so much going on that you kind of feel like you're talking to yourself, and there happens to be a bunch of people in the room. So it to me is a lot less nerve-wracking the larger the crowd, because it just comes so much more anonymous.
Certainly no doubt about it, man. While you're in Arizona, you're doing social media work as well as play-by-play for Arizona Christian University. What was the difference in your preparation for, let's say doing a play-by-play of a basketball game versus going in to be the in-arena host?
Yeah, so in arena is a lot more memorization. It's more on the marketing and promotional side. So making sure you have the names correctly, that you're pronouncing the different brands accurately, and of course, just understand the overall rules of games. And then for the broadcasting side with play-by-play, it's some memorization, making sure I pronounce names right, want to get last names correct, stuff like that. But knowing the stats and kind of the types of players people are, so that you can look for patterns in the game and try and make some predictions, or point out consistencies in a player's performance. So definitely coming at it from a much more technical aspect than memorization. But at the end of it, it's a lot of just working on enunciation and speaking up and speaking clearly, and trying to strike a balance between having all those technical skills, but also being personable and human, and being relatable when you talk, whether it's, in a performance entertainment way or in a broadcast format.
So you're from California, where the weather's always nice. You go to school in Austin, where for the most part the weather's nice. Then you go live in a desert where it's really hot, and now you're in Connecticut. Are you used to these brutal Northeast winters yet?
No, I went home for something, and I came back, and there had been a big storm in Boston, and it did not even occur to me that there would be snow on my car. So I was like out there in like regular low sneakers, like my ankles were out. I had no way to get snow off it was like a whole mess. And I was like, all right, I've done this once, I'm done. Like I need a parking garage or something, but like To me, what somebody says stands out is like I say that we go to the snow, like snow is a destination. And when you're here, like we are in the snow. Like it's been warm out lately, but there's still snow on the ground and you just kind of don't even notice it. But it's definitely a much colder climate than I'm used to.
No doubt about it. Uh, so how did the opportunity come about with the Connecticut Sun? How did you go about networking for that, interviewing, and any hesitation for you to make the move across the country to Connecticut?
Yeah, definitely. So I had worked the Fiesta Bowl as a digital reporter, doing social media for the actual bowl as well as the Cheez-It Bowl. And the head of the production of social media that I worked with used to work at the Mercury with the now vice president of the Connecticut Sun. And so she reached out to him and said, if you know anyone that might be interested, we have a social media opening. He, texted me at like a 8 p.m. on a Thursday or something and was like, hey, how do you feel about moving to Connecticut? And I was at this point had a lot of freelance positions. And so I was like, maybe like one solid job would be worth that move across country, make it a little bit simpler as far as day to day. And so reached out to her, filled out the application. And they had like some, standard questions, a couple projects of like, how would you organize a calendar? What are some different, social media examples you would use for the team just based off what you can see now? And so put together some of those pitches and then ended up flying to Connecticut for both a formal interview and then to work a game day for their lacrosse team. It actually just sold this last week. So that was a pretty cool experience because I hadn't worked with lacrosse much aside from some reporting in college. And so did the live in-game social media for a whole event. Took my time while I was there to try and drive around and kind of see Connecticut, see what it was all about. Because the only thing I knew about Connecticut was UConn and like Gilmore Girls. So I didn't have much of a background. And went back to Arizona and just waited a bit and then ended up offering me the job. So just decided that this was going to be a big jump. There was going to be quite a bit of a learning curve since I hadn't been immersed in lacrosse and WNBA, beyond just kind of keeping up with them casually. And I mean, it's been a total change. I got there in March, I think, and COVID hit like 2 weeks later and shut everything down. So I've been remote most of the year, but it was such a cool opportunity. I think not just the change of scenery, but to get to immerse into such cool and unique leagues that I think really stand alone compared to some of the others.
Yeah, it'd be challenging. You're probably looking forward to working games, and then of course the WNBA season's in a bubble. So maybe you haven't done your full job capabilities yet as far as game day go, but what has been your favorite part about working Connecticut Sun basketball?
Yeah, I think what's really cool is not only do you have the support from the league, but within our team is just the genuine interest in showing the authentic side of the team. So that was a really big upside of the bubble, actually, was having access to the players, to their families, children, in ways we might not have had they been on their own. Once in a standard situation, once they go home, they go home and we're not going to follow them around. But when you're in a bubble, you get to go to pool days and you get to go on boat rides and get some of that behind the scenes content that we're then able to transform and share with the fans and let them see a little bit more of the players and their personalities off the court. And with that, with such a huge momentum in social justice and just overall awareness for social causes, that was another really interesting aspect that was brought into this season. And the WNBA, I think, really leading that movement for a lot of sports. And so getting to help the players use their voices, take advantage of our platforms as the Connecticut Sun, to share those voices, I think was probably my favorite part, and just showing their authentic passions and then things that are really important, not just to them, but to the entire league.
Yeah, it's certainly things could get challenging at times, but it's great that you got access to the players.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on Instagram, you actually have a really large following. I think 1,000 followers. How did that come about? And when did you start being like, "Wow, I can't believe that this many people are following me"?
I still wouldn't consider it that huge, especially working in sports where I'm surrounded with so many people with, millions of followers. But a huge part of that came from the Phoenix Suns, and being very much a public face. They're saying my name in the arena. So I still think to this day, most of my followers are probably from Phoenix, even though I was only there for a couple years.
Mhm.
But since then, I definitely try and make an effort, not only, from a branding and networking point, but also just human interest in my passion is sports. And so reaching out and connecting with a lot of people and trying to join in on the fun commenting on different sports posts and stuff, because at, the end of the day, I really am just a fan of sports and want to share not only the experiences I have access to, but my opinions and my thoughts on all the fun stuff that happen around sports.
Would you consider yourself a low-level social media influencer?
Um, I don't think so. I think it's definitely interesting to me, and that like I can't really take off my social media hat when I go to my personal social media.
Mhm.
So I still really am conscientious about how I post and the aesthetic, but
Right.
not so much for the idea of being independently an influencer, and more just I like to share what is cool to me or what's interesting, or what I find important. And hopefully if people are following me, it's because they share similar interests, but not so much to leave a specific influencer or change their minds about anything.
Tell our viewers where they could find you on all social media handles.
Yeah, they're all the same. They're all at VJ Slate, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. That one's been really fun since the pandemic has started. So yeah, all those social media platforms are at VJ Slate.
All right, last question here. Toughest question. Save the best for last here. If you were to walk in to a freshman college orientation,
Mhm.
give advice to them, these students, about how to pursue a career in the sports field, what are the blueprints you're giving them?
I think my advice has kind of always been consistent in that it's to work as hard as the athletes you're working around. The higher level you want to get at, the harder you're going to have to work. You have to have your form of practice and preparation, your film hours, um, you know, the off the clock stuff. You have to be doing a lot of that extra work to set you apart from just the kids showing up to their regular practice and games. And so working as hard as those athletes, and then whether it's marketing, broadcasting, coaching, whatever, aspect of sports you want to go into, finding out what kind of those different areas are that you need to be strong in, and then applying that same mentality of practice and film and preparation, so that you can be, the of course professional version of what you want to be.
Excellent advice, and hopefully, everyone takes it to heart. I think working hard and networking are extremely key in this industry. So that's going to do it here. Jessica, thank you for your time. So for Jessica Slate, I'm Nick Durst, and of course, you're watching this on In the Zone.